So we made it. We are here in Cologne, Germany for Gamescom 2019. Now, if you guys aren't aware what Gamescom is pretty much the biggest gaming convention in the entire world. There's so many big names from like Nintendo to Sony to Microsoft, VR people, everyone's here, and I'm here as well for some reason. So today we are going to check out some games. We've already been here for one day already. Today we're checking out a bunch of awesome VR titles. We're checking out Planet Zoo as well. Yesterday we saw Cyberpunk 2077. I got a cool jacket. It was amazing, but there'll be a lot of footage coming up. Make sure you stick around, and hopefully I'll be able to show you what this amazing convention is all about and stuff. So yeah. Bye.
Hello, it's Steve from the future here, woo! So I just thought I'd provide you with some voiceover for the next part of the video to show you exactly what I saw at Gamescom 2019. Now this very first title was, well, just that, the very first title I saw during my entire trip, and it's called Phantom Covert Ops. Now, Phantom Covert Ops basically puts you in the role as this soldier who, for some reason, has a canoe. Regardless, it was super fun. You basically have to make your way up a river in your kayak or canoe or whatever it is. It certainly isn't a speedboat, or I'd have this demo done way faster than I actually did, and I wouldn't have died like 7 times? But basically, as you can see, you have to make your way up a river while kind of moving your arms like you would if you were sailing in a real canoe or a real kayak. It was really fun, super atmospheric. I was playing on an Oculus Quest. I have no idea whether it's coming to other Oculus devices like the Rift or the Rift S. I was playing on the Quest, but if it is, I'll edit in some little text here. Now, as I already said, it was super atmospheric, and that was one of my favorite parts of the demo, but my most favorite part of the demo was basically the entire mechanic of reloading. All you had to do was basically drop your arm to the side, pick up the ammunition, and just slot it straight in. It wasn't like where I feel like many VR titles trip themselves up, where you have to cock the gun and then slide out the other magazine and then put the other magazine in and then do 50 cartwheels and then jump over the moon. You know, all you had to do was basically do a quick swap. And I much preferred that kind of arcadey feeling to a more realistic feeling, because it just allows you to do what you want to do in a much quicker fashion, and obviously that gives you more time to focus on your movements and what's going on around you. It was super intense, super atmospheric, and I loved it. So this game in particular was made by a company called Dreams, but I will put a link in the description linking you to all the different games you're going to see now and in upcoming parts of this video, so you can check them out for yourself if you are interested. But yes, this was an extremely good start to the con, and it is definitely a VR title to keep your eyes on in the future. Straight after seeing Phantom, we moved on to something radically different named Otto Knots. Now, Otto Knots is basically a robot building simulator where you can create your own colony using robots that you code yourself. Now, I was given a very short presentation and demo of the game, and in it I saw some amazing stuff, from teaching robots how to cut down a tree, you know, the real basic stuff, all the way down to robots making their own food. This was a really cool demo, as it was basically split into different portions of the game. So for example, as I said, we saw the very basic wood cutting bots in one section, then we saw them develop a little more, then a little more, until they basically had started their very own little industrial revolution by the end of it. I think my favorite part of this game in particular was just how cool and interesting it was to see robots teaching other robots skills, who in turn teach those skills to other robots, who in turn teach those skills to other robots. I really liked how it was like a chain of commands, all starting from the player, but then automating itself. I really liked the prospect of having a colony that could just keep producing ways to survive for themselves without the player having to move a finger, really. Maybe I'm just lazy in that sense, but yeah, that was really cool, and it was really cute. So this was the game I was most excited to see at Gamescom, and ironically, it's the one I can share the least about. I have no idea what footage I'm going to put here because there was a strict no recording and no photograph policy, but I got to see an exclusive press gameplay demo of Cyberpunk 2077. The demo itself was around 45 minutes long, and I saw everything from driving around the city to gunfights in abandoned malls to hacking into people's brains to trick them into shooting their allies. It was absolutely mad. Now, before we were allowed in, CD Projekt Red, the developers behind Cyberpunk, had a little bar area that we were allowed into, which was so incredibly cool because it was styled after the game's aesthetic. So there were like neon signs and everything was flashy and futuristic, but as for the game itself, it actually exceeded what I had expected from it. If I had to pick a favorite part from the demo, it would probably be the world itself. Night City, the location of the game, is super detailed and vast and so meticulously designed that it really was a character in itself. Unfortunately, Keanu Reeves was not there at the event, as much as I'm sure as he would have loved to meet me. But what did happen is that we all received a crazy awesome Cyberpunk 2077 jacket, which I have been rocking ever since I returned from Germany.
Is that you? I didn't recognize you.
After that, it was time for the VR Games Showcase presented by Perp Games. This was an awesome experience for me, as it was basically a 3-hour gauntlet of brand new, upcoming VR titles, some of which I had heard of or even played on the channel before, and some of which I hadn't, so it was definitely a fun experience for me personally. Starting off with the first game I checked out, I got to play a little bit of the amazingly cute and adorable Curious Tale of the Stolen Pets. This was basically a hide-and-seek style VR title where I was tasked with locating these cute and cuddly creatures hidden amongst the world. You could rotate and spin the world, crouch on the ground to see underneath it, and interact with the many objects tucked away in it to find those pets. Now, the story of the game is super emotive and heartwarming, based around revisiting your past with the voice of your grandfather in your head. Yes, this was definitely an absolute joy to play. It was super cute, and yeah, I loved it, and I'm sure you guys will as well. After that, it was time to move on to Budget Cuts 2 Mission Insolvency. Now, you guys may remember the adventures of Steve and Guido in the first Budget Cuts title a while back. And I'm happy to say that with the sheer quality of this new upcoming title, they will definitely be back for more. This time, you have a bow and arrow, and the game takes you to different locations like the rooftops in this case. It was super cool to find a bunch of different paths to sneak through in order to get to the end of the mission, and there are a bunch of cool spots, just like in the first game, for you to use your teleporter to get an advantage on the terrifying guard robots who, yes, are just as terrifying in Budget Cuts 2. Next was The Walking Dead Onslaught. Now, this one really surprised me, as often TV or movie tie-in games can be quite boring or stale or lazy. This one was full of excitement with some really neat features, like, for example, a full dismemberment system, a context mechanic where if you swing your sword at the wrong angle or too lightly, it will actually get stuck in the zombie, forcing you to rip it out. And the hordes, especially towards the end of the demo, were downright scary. There were some very tense moments in this demo indeed. There were a bunch of different weapons, and I feel very sorry for the next person who decided to check out the game after me, because let me tell you, due to the intensity of that game, some sweat was definitely shed, okay? Some sweat definitely remained in that VR headset, and as I said, I'm sorry to the person that was after me. Please forgive me. Then it was time for Acron Attack of the Squirrels. This was different to the other VR titles because it was a multiplayer title, a multiplayer party-style game specifically, where one person, specifically the person wearing a VR headset, has to defend their acorns from a team of attacking squirrels played by the other players in the room on their mobile phones. So setting up was super easy. Essentially, you just had to input a code into your devices and you were entered straight into the same game as your buddies. Now, the squirrels all have different abilities. Some can build bridges, some have big shields which they can use to defend other squirrels, and all around it was a super fun and hilarious experience. But don't just take my word for it. Play it yourself. I am giving away 4 Steam copies of this game for you guys. All you have to do is click the link in the description, follow the steps, and you will be entered to win a copy. I'll hold this giveaway for about a week, so everyone has time to enter. Good luck. This was one of the most fun experiences I had throughout the entire Gamescom event, so make sure you enter to join in with the insanity. And if you don't have a VR headset compatible with Steam, please do not enter. We do not want someone stealing a key from someone else just for the heck of it. So make sure you are doing it legitimately and you have a VR headset before you enter. Now, following Acron, I was invited to check out The Wizard's Dark Times. This was an awesome spellcasting action title set in a very fairy tale-like world. It featured full motion tracked spellcasting, so the way you'd conjure spells is by moving your arms in a certain way to produce fireballs, ice swords, shields, and much more. What's better is that you could combine these spells together, so one of my favorites was to freeze the enemies and then use my force push to like shatter them, but other examples were like freezing an enemy, melting them with fire to create water, and then using lightning abilities on the puddle of water to create a shock effect. The enemies were awesome, with some of them like towering above you and some of them being smaller and rushing at you, so it was really all about remembering those spell combinations and using them as effectively as possible as you could before the enemies finally reached you. And last of all was Down the Rabbit Hole, a VR title based on the Alice in Wonderland franchise. Now, this was a very whimsical and wonderful puzzler where you had to guide your character through a variety of different rooms, solving riddles, meeting characters, and finding hidden items along the way. The creators did an excellent job in capturing the world of Alice in Wonderland, and I found the puzzles to be really intuitive and interesting, especially given the way you had to rotate and twist and turn, like physically, to see each different room in order to follow your character or just simply observe your surroundings. It really made, despite obviously the game world looking quite small to your eyes on the screen, it really made it feel super huge when you were actually in VR. Now, the VR titles available at the showcase were absolutely stellar. I was really impressed. If you guys spotted any title that you found interesting from the showcase that you'd like to see featured on the channel in the future, please let me know. Now, the final game of the convention that I checked out was Planet Zoo, a game whose predecessor, Planet Coaster, was and still is one of my favorite titles of the past few years. Now, Planet Zoo was absolutely amazing. The level of detail on each animal, their fur, their scales, everything was so detailed, making me really feel as though I was looking after real living creatures. I actually think the developers Frontier said to me that they had been consulting with universities and research groups to get the most realistic looking animals who act the way they do in the wild as close as possible in the game. So the park I was situated in was already a fairly well built up zoo, and each section had a different animal in. There were deer, bears, crocodiles, rhinos, and so much more living in the zoo, and yes, they all poop. So to attract customers to your park, it isn't just about what creatures you have or where you place them, it's also about how happy those animals are. You know, nobody wants to see stressed animals, so paying attention to their needs such as their habitat, the weathers, their toys, and making adjustments from there and how they interact with each other is critical to ensure your zoo is a commercial success. Now, for those of you wanting to release a giant horde of giraffes and monkeys on your visitors, fear not, because I did see a hint of what would happen if an animal escaped its habitat right at the start of the demo. Now, it's vitally important to ensure that you have the appropriate staff hired to deal with the situation if a creature escapes. You can also trade animals around the world with other members of the community for cash. However, the health and temperament of the animal is important once again to ensure that your animals are going to make a profit when put on the market. In our case, we managed to buy a tiger and build an entirely new habitat for them to play around in. It's a good thing we had the budget to purchase walls, because if that tiger had escaped, it might have been a wise idea to invest in more janitors. For the blood, of course. But yeah, Planet Zoo was absolutely amazing, and it got me thinking, would you guys like to see an adventure, a series of Steve and Guido making their own zoo in Planet Zoo? If you do, make sure you let me know in the comment section down below, and if any of these games piqued your interest during this video that you'd like to see on the channel, make sure you let me know as well, because all of the games I saw were absolutely amazing. Hats off to everyone that brought their games to Gamescom, and to the people that invited me to parties or to meet certain people or to just hang out and just said hi. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again at Gamescom 2020. But aside from that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Gamescom was an absolute blast, and I will definitely be going again next year. Upcoming conventions for me personally, I'm going to EGX, I think, in October. That's maybe a maybe at this point right now. If you guys are around, make sure you say hi. And as I said, if you saw any titles during this video that you liked the look of, that you'd like to see on the channel, please let me know either here in the comment section or on Twitter or on my socials. So thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been Steve. That has been Guido. Checkpoint complete. Bye, guys.